So we finally have the trailer for Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, and with it we have a whole host of new information, reveals and things to talk about. Not least, we finally have the confirmation of Mummy Longlegs. But there's also something that just doesn't seem quite right to me. Something that doesn't fit, something that seems suspicious, and I do think that Mob Games are hinting that they still have more to surprise us with just yet. So in today's video, I'm going to offer a theory on Mummy Longlegs and why she doesn't seem to be exactly how she's described by Poppy. As of most of my theories in between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, this is mostly speculation as we don't really have a lot to go on, but I do think that there is something here to talk about and something worth discussing. So one of the biggest things that stood out to me after watching the Chapter 2 trailer is that Mummy Longlegs isn't exactly how she's described by Poppy. In fact, Poppy describes her in a very different way as to what we actually see on the screen. Now, we've spoken about Mummy Longlegs before. In fact, I came up with this theory after watching the teaser trailer and those collectible cards. In the teaser trailer, we had the line from Poppy, "Mummy doesn't like guests," which some people theorized could be referencing Stella Graber, some people thought could be Kissy Missy, but after we got the collectible cards, I did talk about Mummy Longlegs being the most likely solution. We now have this confirmed as the voice actress for Mummy Longlegs has confirmed the name is indeed Mummy Longlegs. Now at first glance this seems pretty obvious. This character looks to fit the bill, Mummy Longlegs. She has very long legs and arms, and in fact both of them seem to be able to stretch for a very long way. I also talked about in my previous theory how Mummy Longlegs was most likely a reference to a spider, that being a play on the words of Daddy Longlegs, which once again, there are many different species of daddy longlegs and some of them are indeed arachnid. She also does seem to fit this bill. She does kind of look like a four-legged spider. And yes, I'm well aware that spiders are eight-legged and she's only four-legged, but after you look through the trailer you can actually see quite a lot of spider webs around, which just further reinforces the point that there is a spider reference here. Just want to point out on this part as well that some people have suggested that possibly these hair strands are her four other legs, which I don't think that's necessarily true because they don't have any feet on them, but it's a nice idea nonetheless. So okay, case closed, this is Mummy Longlegs, what is there to talk about? Well, there was something that appears in both trailers that just really doesn't feel right to me, and that is the line, "Mummy doesn't like guests." We hear this in both trailers, both in the teaser trailer and now again in the full trailer, so this clearly isn't just some sort of throwaway line, it is meant to be there on purpose. But that doesn't really seem to fit with what we see with this character. In fact, when this character is revealed, she comes out of the shadows directly towards the protagonist, and she seems very happy to see you. She has a giant smile on her face, and when you listen to how she talks, she doesn't seem annoyed by your presence. In fact, she seems very, very happy to have you here.
A new playmate! It's been so long.
She describes you as a new playmate and says that it's been so long. This seems like somebody who's very happy to have somebody in the factory. To me, this suggests that she's very happy to see another human, and maybe even debunks the idea that there is another human alive in the factory. Unless that person has managed to avoid her for a long time, it doesn't seem like this character has seen a human in many, many years, and in fact, we know that most of the staff disappeared 10 years ago, so you might be the first human she's seen in a decade. So why then does Poppy say that Mummy doesn't like guests? What's going on here? I actually have a couple of different theories that I want to share with you today. The first being that this isn't Mummy Longlegs. Now, yes, it is confirmed that Mummy Longlegs is a character, and I do think it's likely that this is Mummy Longlegs, and I have an explanation for that, which I'll cover after this one. But it's also possible that Mob Games are being very clever here, confirming Mummy Longlegs, but actually showing us something different. This whole theory is founded on the basis that this character actually seems like a child. If you look at the behavior of this character, and if you look at her mannerisms, she definitely is behaving in a very childlike way to me. Listen again to her choice of words. A new playmate. The word playmate to me implies that she is a child. After all, you don't really see adults talking about having playmates. Playmates to me conjures up the idea of a nursery, a small child, as children often do play together in pairs or sometimes even in groups. This is also reinforced by the fact that she's been going around the factory collecting toys. Now, I did have previous ideas about somebody collecting toys and maybe they were putting them together and creating something out of it, but it could just be that this character is creating toys to play with. After all, we actually don't see any evidence that she's doing anything with these toys, she just seems to be taking them away. Now this actually brings me on to a point about the ARG. So if you haven't kept up to date with my coverage on the ARG, which is unfortunately now been taken down, the first change that we found was a cat bee that appeared on the first camera. Now this cat bee appeared to have been attacked, as many of the dolls in this factory are. They always seem to be covered in blood and they always seem to have looked like they've been shredded by something. Now here's something interesting. I don't think it was Mommy Longlegs that did this to Cat Bee. I think it's pretty safe to say that it was Mommy Longlegs that dragged the cat bee away, but I think something else killed this cat bee. After all, why would this character kill this cat bee and then come back for it later? Why didn't she just take it straight away? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I really do think that something else killed this cat bee. Perhaps Experiment 1006, or perhaps something else entirely. That's not the point of this theory though, so it's just something that I wanted to talk about. But we also see this character go into this vat of toys, and we also see this character take away this Huggy Wuggy. Again, we don't know exactly what for, but I think it seems like she wants to play with the toys, because again, up until now, she's had no real playmates. Maybe she just doesn't get along with the rest of the toys in this factory, who knows. So, this leads me on to my first theory. Perhaps this isn't Mommy Longlegs, perhaps this one is just a child. After all, if you look at this character, it does look very cute and childlike. It looks like a children's doll almost, and we'll come on to that in the second part of this theory. The idea that Mommy doesn't like guests could mean that this is one of her children, and that it's not her that's going to be the main antagonist. In fact, it's going to be her mother, a much larger and much scarier version of this thing. Perhaps even one with 8 legs rather than just 4. But I also want to offer an alternative theory. This could still be Mommy Longlegs, and in fact, there is actually a pretty strong link in this trailer that might prove this to be true. So my second theory is that this is Mommy Longlegs, but this isn't her only form. After all, think back to Huggy Wuggy. He seemed to have 2 forms as well. His first form, he seemed very normal. He seemed like a plush statue, if you will. He was stood there with a smile on his face, and he seemed pretty innocent. But the second time we saw him, he seemed completely different. His face had turned into a monstrous form, and he was very, very aggressive. So perhaps this character will have multiple forms too. I think there is a massive clue in the design of this character that's going to prove this to be the case. And this one actually came from my YouTube comments. So quite a few of you have been talking about how this character resembles a Betty Spaghetti, which is apparently a doll from the 90s. Now I did a little bit of research on this and I found something very, very interesting. But first of all, let's just see how valid that comparison is. So if you see these 2 characters, you can see that they actually have a lot of similarities. They have these large eyes with these almost painted on eyelashes. They both have very long arms and legs with bangles around them. And even looking at the hair, you can see that both characters have a curl going towards the right and then a bunch of hair to the left. They do look pretty similar, and it could just be a coincidence or it could be an actual reference to a real world toy line. But I do think that this might be a massive hint to what's going to happen to Mommy Longlegs. So I didn't know this, but after researching these toys, I found out that they were actually interchangeable. You can take off the arms and legs, you can swap them around, and perhaps that's exactly what's going to happen with Mommy Longlegs. Perhaps she's going to change her form, just like Huggy did. Perhaps this is her playful side, almost like the son from Five Nights at Freddy's. Later on, it's going to change and be much more sinister, either by changing her body parts around, or by revealing her own true form within. You can see that these eyes are slightly depressed. It does seem like this face is either changeable or it can be removed. But what about the idea of her talking about a playmate? Well, it's possible that when she says playmate, she doesn't mean a playmate for her. Perhaps she means a playmate for other toys. And in fact, maybe she is the mother to the toys in this area. Perhaps she looks after them and she wants us to stick around and play with them. And maybe this is why we see this whack-a-mole sequence. This Mommy Longlegs character wants to use us to entertain her own children, those being the inhabitants of this factory. So what do I think is going to happen in Chapter 2? Well, this is just pure speculation, but this is what I actually think is going to happen in Chapter 2 of Poppy Playtime. I think we're going to encounter this character, Mommy Longlegs. I think she's going to be very happy to see us, and she wants us to entertain her children. After all, many of these areas do look like children's play areas, and perhaps they were built for these toys. But knowing that we have a goal, we have a mission in this factory, which was first to find Poppy, but now could be something completely different, we're going to try to continue on with our goal, which Mommy Longlegs is not going to like one bit. And once we do that, once we betray her, she's going to turn evil. And once she turns evil, I think we're going to see her true form. Her true form, which is probably going to be much scarier than this. But these are just my thoughts on this Chapter 2 trailer. I have many more, and I probably will make at least one more video before the game comes out, but I do think that there's definitely some secret here that we're not quite fully putting together yet. It seems like Mommy Longlegs isn't quite who she seems, so either Poppy knows something that we don't, or she's holding out on us. Or maybe even Mob Games have one final secret to reveal in the gameplay. There we go, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, let me know down in the comments below, leave the video a like, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.